Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Geezerology Gazette for October 25th, 2021. We're going to talk about a couple news items today, and Bob's going to start us off.
All righty. Thank you there, Scotty. So we all here are of a certain age when we can remember going into record stores, flipping through there, finding an album, bringing it home, maybe either listening to it by ourselves or oftentimes with a group of friends, passing that album cover around, pouring into the details of, who's on the album, who produced it, looking at the artwork and everything. So that's a memory from, our youth. Well, it seems that a lot of people are finding that experience out again because, according to a recent article in the New York Times, vinyl records are now the music industry's most popular and highest grossing physical format. And it seems that, LP sales were growing a lot over the last decade, but during the pandemic, they just exploded. The Times says that in the first 6 months of this year, 17 million vinyl records were sold in the U.S., generating $467 million in retail revenue, which is nearly double the amount from the same period in 2020. So 16 million CDs were also sold in the first half of 2021, worth only 205 million. But it's still, those physical sales are just a tiny part of the music business. Streaming is still like 84% of domestic revenue here. But along with that good news for vinyl, there is a flip side to it. No pun intended.
Yeah, what's side two?
Okay, yeah. Side two is the industry can't keep up with the demand. For several reasons, they're blaming it on. One is the equipment for making vinyl albums. Most of it's several decades old, so the machines are, taking a lot of upkeep to keep going. There's a supply chain issue. It seems that the vinyl that's actually used in making the LPs, which is polyvinyl chloride, that's the same vinyl that's used in plumbing pipes. There's a supply chain issue getting that material. There's a supply chain issue for cardboard, to make the album covers. And it says that back in 2020, a fire destroyed one of the only two plants in the world that made the lacquer discs, which is an essential part of this recording process. And and it says that the biggest issue is literally supply and demand. The demand has grown so much they can't keep up with it. And they're saying that what used to take maybe a couple months to come out with a vinyl album now could take up to a year. And wow. There's also some blame being directed toward major retailers like Walmart and Amazon because they're pushing to sell these things. And there's also some pushback against some of the major performers because they're coming out with albums now, which is blocking the smaller performers and smaller companies, who kind of kept the vinyl stuff alive over the years. So anyway, if you're interested in further, you can go to New York Times webpage and look up the article.
So what do you have any details there on what is driving this? I mean, are these both mostly just like re-released, remastered catalog titles, or are these new titles that
new titles?
New
Most
titles?
of them are new titles, yeah, and
wow.
That's why, like, that they're saying that people like Taylor Swift, Adele has an album coming out here soon, and some of the newer, bigger stars are really jumping on the bandwagon. And the article gets into the reasons, and it seems that the retailers and the stars and performers are pushing it because they've complained so much about how little revenue they get from the streaming. And if they can
right.
sell an album,
oh sure,
yeah. And they're saying that especially if they introduce like a special pressing or something, they could get up to $25 an album. So they're looking at that increased revenue stream.
Wow,
and consumers.
The artist can get up to $25 an album.
Well, they're saying the $25 for an album, what it sells.
Oh! I see what you're saying. Okay.
So rather than getting maybe a few pennies for a stream, if you're an artist and you could pick up, I don't know how much their share of that might be,
And $5, even $5. So, this stuff adds up pretty quick, right?
Exactly right. And the article says that the consumers, they're liking, that analog sound. They like the tactile thing of actually owning something. And so, now it didn't get into, at least I didn't see who the driving consumers are, whether it's young people or old geezers like us. But anyway, apparently a lot of people are rediscovering the joy of physically holding something
Right.
in your hand.
I was in well, I think it was Target the other day, and I was surprised when I saw they probably had I don't know, maybe a couple of dozen of them there, including the one that really grabbed my attention, and I actually picked up and looked at it, was the George Harrison All Things Must Pass triple box set, or whatever.
Wow.
Whatever you call it now. Yeah, they had that at Target.
Really?
And and I remember when back in the 80s when we were transitioning from vinyl to CD, that I remember the retailers being thrilled about that because they could fit more product into the same physical space.
Well, I remember the prices of CDs when they first came out, and I stood there looking at buying some CDs of albums that I'd already owned for decades, griping to myself that I'm dropping $15 for a CD back in the 80s,
Right.
For an album that I bought for, a couple bucks way back when.
Right. Yeah, I remember when I was in high school, the standard price for a CD, for the standard price for an album was like $3.50, $4. If you got, if the All Things Must Pass, which is 3 records and which is basically a box set, three records and a booklet and everything. I think that probably went for like $7 or $8, and that was, not all of us could afford that.
Well, I was in an oldies grocery store 2 or 3 years back, and they had a bunch of albums there in their non-food section. I remember flipping through it, and Jimi Hendrix RU Experience was like $15.
Yeah,
for the
new album. That's probably in line, because CDs have been $15 forever. They didn't get past that too much. I think they generally go for about $20 now, which is really not that much compared to when they started out at $15 back in the mid 80s, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. I
thought it was too. Yeah. With that, Bob, I may have mentioned it before. There's actually last Sunday I met an old friend from high school at the Record Exchange, which is something similar to what I think you have in Kansas City. I mean, it is one of the largest music exchange services. They have over 10,000 square feet. It's an old St. Louis County Library branch, and the guys owned it for more than 40 years. So there were vinyl LPs from going back, I think, to the 40s. I mean, I saw art, Ella Fitzgerald, all those different genres, Dixieland. Of course, there was, plenty of CDs. And there was a few 8-tracks, believe it or not. And also he has music equipment, everything from amplifiers, turntables, you name it. And, he said business is good. And most of his sales, he said, are vinyl. You can buy and sell and trade and all that. But, he's been doing it for 44 years. So something's going on.
Non-stop. He didn't close down for a decade and then reopen or anything. He's just been in business for.
He's expanded if he's done anything. He says, I'm running out of, he's got a room on the second floor, which is just, mostly 8-track tapes, but you're welcome to go through all that. But I didn't see that many cassettes, but a lot of vinyl. And of course, they price it based on the condition. I even found a CD, and I found the album. I didn't buy it, but Jesus Christ Superstar. At one time I had it, but I traded it in when I was my first semester down at Southwest Missouri State. I traded with a guy who had the Allman Brothers live album. But that's another story.
Oh, Dan, you turned your back on JC?
No, I thought I was just in a different mood at that point.
He turned his back on Andrew Lloyd Webber, which is even worse.
Yeah.
You may have to atone for that when you're standing in front of the pearly gates at some time.
Probably so, but I think there was one or two top 20 hits from that album, but it just didn't hold my interest like in memory of Elizabeth Reed did, I guess.
Yeah, I remember we did a Geezerology video on that back in the beginning. One of our earlier ones, Bob and I did. Then we go back and look for that. Bob, what's next?
Okay, several episodes back, Dan told us about Tony Bennett recording with Lady Gaga, and that they were going to have an album coming out. Well, that album dropped October 1st, and it's put Tony Bennett back in the Guinness World Record, this time for being the oldest person to release an album of new material. And of course, the album was called Love for Sale, and Bennett was 95 years and 60 days old, according to Guinness, when that album came out. And the album celebrates the music of Cole Porter, and it's not the first album that he's done with Lady Gaga. They did an album several years back called Cheek to Cheek. And interesting, this isn't the only time in his 70-year career that Bennett made it into Guinness. He holds 4 other records, the oldest person to reach #1 on the U.S. album chart with that previously mentioned Cheek to Cheek. The longest time between UK top 20 albums, which was 39 years. The oldest person to enter the UK top 20 album chart with something called Duets in American Classic when he was 80 years old. And the longest time between the release of an original recording and a re-recording of the same single by the same artist. So a lot of accomplishments for Tony Bennett over a very long career.
I remember a couple of weeks ago I had something that he broke Bob Dylan's record as the oldest person to hit the #1 spot on the U.S. album charts. I think something like that. That was with the Duets album, I believe, if I recall correctly. Let me toss a couple things out here. First of all, I remember a couple of 3 weeks ago when we learned that it might be the end of the Cure because Simon Gallup, the bass player, announced that he was quitting the Cure because he was feeling betrayed, or there's some kind of falling out with him and Robert Smith, and so they decided they're just going to pack it in. Well, just quickly, I just read earlier this week that Simon Gallup is back with the Cure, and they've kissed and made up, and everything is good with the Cure now. So so we'll probably be hearing more from them. Jay Black, who was a fellow, he was born David Blatt was his real name. Well, Jay Black was the lead singer for Jay and the Americans, and he passed this week. He was 82 years old. They had big hits with back in the 60s with This Magic Moment and Come a Little Bit Closer, a couple of their bigger hits. But this guy, David Blatt, he was actually the second Jay. They had a lead singer named John J. Trainer, which was his real name. That's how they became Jay and Americans. Well, Trainer left, and David Blatt took over, so they had to rename him Jay, so so they can still go by Jay and Americans, right? But anyway, he passed this week. R.I.P. to Jay Black. Also, one more item that I have. You recall a couple of weeks ago, we were talking about Jose Feliciano and this controversial version he did of the Star Spangled Banner at the top of the 5th game of the World Series back in 1968. Well, last night, we had probably the most controversial performance of the National Anthem at a postseason baseball game since then. It seems like the Atlanta Braves, and they just announced this at the last minute, just like 2 hours before the game started. Travis Tritt came to the Braves Dodgers game 6 last night to sing the national anthem, right? And this is while Tritt is boiled in this controversy because he is canceling shows that have vaccine mandates, and he doesn't agree with the mandates and yada yada. And now so there's speculation come out. People are looking at, well, what's really going on is Travis Tritt couldn't sell tickets to these small places that he was that he was booking. And but anyway, it's become a big thing. He's been going on Tucker Carlson shows on Fox News and getting all kinds of publicity for this and everything like that. So now the Braves invited him to sing the national anthem last night, and he did. It wasn't on TV. Now the TV networks, they stopped showing the performances of the national anthem before the games a few years ago after the Colin Kaepernick thing. They've all decided that they're just not even going to show this stuff on TV anymore. So they didn't. But as it turned out, Travis Tritt could not go down to the field to sing the national anthem because it's MLB protocol that you are not allowed on the field if you are not vaccinated.
I did not know that.
Yes.
I didn't either.
Grounds crew, promotional people, anybody doing performances, anything like that, you are not allowed onto the field without proof of vaccination. That's Major League Baseball rule these days. So what the Braves did was they blocked off a little area in the stands behind or next to one of the dugouts, and just blocked off some seats and set up a little sound system there. So Travis Tritt sang the national anthem from the stands because he couldn't get on the field because he's not vaccinated. And it's like, okay, there's about 5 different levels where people are upset by this whole situation. Mm-hmm. Number one, it's like, why are the Braves at this particular time inviting Travis Tritt to play the national anthem? Why are you doing that? I mean, this is, people are taking this as the Braves, taking a stand on this, and but the problem is here too, beyond that, is that MLB has to approve this stuff. So MLB is at fault here too, not just the Braves, but people are forgetting that. Anyway, but it became a pretty big controversy. It wasn't on TV. If you watched the ball game on TV last night and all the pregame shows, it was never mentioned. But especially on social media and on some news shows, it became a pretty good controversy.
Wrong sport for the analogy, I know, but I'm going to throw a yellow flag here on Travis Tritt's hypocrisy. And I'm sorry to get political, folks who are watching this, but he won't do a concert where they're requiring a vaccine passport or anything, or a vaccine mandate, but he'll do this where they're requiring vaccine mandates to be on the field.
Right.
Come on, Travis, double standard, all the way.
That's part of the controversy. And the other thing is that the Braves were kind of under fire anyway because of the name of their team, right? And the whole tomahawk chop thing that the fans do at their games, and a lot of people took that as the Braves giving a middle finger to
Well, part of that is not a lot of, I think certain owners in Major League Baseball, they're not too thrilled with Manfred Mann and his one-man show. I mean,
what?
It's not Manfred Mann, but I refer to him as Manfred Mann.
Who are you referring to? Tritt?
Well, he's the commissioner of baseball. This is his name. Rob Manfred.
Okay.
I refer to him as
Manfred.
Manfred.
You were talking about there.
Yeah, you lost me there, Dan. So.
Yeah, Manfred Mann, the blinded by the light fame.
Yeah, I know Manfred Mann, but I don't know baseball. So.
Yeah. But anyway, I just wanted to get that. I just wanted to get that out there. It's like it was, to me, it was totally ridiculous. And I found it a little offensive. I to the point where I thought, screw this. I'm just, I'm done with MLB, but I watched the game.
Yeah, the Braves went, no.
Okay. on Tuesday, we don't have any of our anniversaries today, Monday, but on Tuesday is the 56th anniversary of the Beatles receiving their MBEs from Queen Elizabeth II in a ceremony at Buckingham Palace. Remember, this is the one where a lot of the older generation Brits who started turning in their MBEs because these young twerps were getting the MBE, right? That happened in 1965. And this is funny. John Lennon later said that the group, John, Paul, John, and Ringo, kind of convened in one of the palace bathrooms to smoke some doobies to calm their nerves before this ceremony, and that became a big thing, right? Yeah, and Lennon later said all these people who were given back their MBEs or returning them in protest. Lennon said lots of people who complained about us receiving the MBE reserved theirs for heroism in the war and for killing people. We received ours for entertaining people. I'd say we deserve ours more.
I watched one of the segments of the 1971 series on Apple TV last night, and there was a segment where they showed footage of the announcement that the Beatles, were formally ending, and there was a TV announcer doing the story about it outside Apple, and he equated it to the end of the British Empire. That the Beatles were no longer. Yeah. So interesting. Two interesting takes on that.
And also Tuesday, we have an anniversary of a couple of deaths on Tuesday. It will be the 30th anniversary of the death of Bill Graham, the guy who built the Fillmore East in New York and the Fillmore West in San Francisco. Big, huge concert halls back in the 60s. Well, he died in 26 October 1991. He was killed in a helicopter crash. He was riding in a helicopter, struck the top of the Pacific Gas and Electric Transmission Tower in California and exploded. And also on Tuesday is the 22nd anniversary of the death of Hoyt Axton by heart attack. Hoyt Axton, who was he wrote a lot of songs. He had a lot of hits that other people covered. He wrote Joy to the World by Three Dog Night. He wrote The Pusher by Steppenwolf. He wrote Snowblind Friend by Steppenwolf. Other people who had hits with his songs are Glenn Campbell, John Denver, Elvis Presley. Hoyt Axton was 61 when he died 22 years ago. And I just learned this. Hoyt Axton's mother, Mae Boren Axton, wrote the song Heartbreak Hotel.
I did not know that.
I did not know that either. I just learned that. Wednesday would have been the 57th wedding anniversary of Salvatore Philip Bono and Sherilyn Sarkisian LaPierre, Sonny and Cher. They were married 57 years ago on Wednesday. They were married for 12 years. Had a very successful career together as a duo. And they continued. I mean, they remained very close even after they divorced. They remained very close until the day that Sonny died in that skiing accident.
Yeah, if I could add one little kind of an odd trivia note, I think Sonny Bono may have been maybe not the first, but he was part of that wave of celebrity turned elected official. He was elected to Congress
right
later in his career. I think he served just one term, but
I'm not sure, but one or two terms. It may have been 2 terms, but yeah, he was a congressman for a while. Also Wednesday, a couple of death anniversaries. First of all, 41 years ago in 1980, former T-Rex percussionist Steve Peregrine Took died. He choked to death on a cherry stone, drinking a cocktail. he had been just, we actually talked about this before when I think it was probably his birthday when we ran across this, but a little more detail now that I didn't have before, that the reason he choked on a cocktail cherry was because he had consumed some magic mushrooms and it numbed all the sensation in his throat. And he didn't know that this cherry was going down his throat. He was age 31. This was just a few years after actually Mark Boland fired him and hired a guy named Mickey Finn to take his place in T-Rex. Also on Wednesday is the 8th anniversary of the death of Lou Reed with liver disease. He had undergone a liver transplant in April that just didn't take, and he died at home with Laurie Anderson by his side. Thursday will be the 64th anniversary of Elvis Presley being told by police after a show at the Pan Pacific Auditorium in Los Angeles that he was told that he cannot perform in California again if he insists on wiggling his hips on stage. They told him that he would have to clean up his act before he comes back and performs in California again. And then the next night, the Vice Squad, the LA Vice Squad, filmed his entire concert just to make sure that he stayed in line.
To protect and serve.
That was on 28th of October, 1957. On 28th of October, 1961, a guy named Raymond Jones went into the NEMS record store in Liverpool, and he was trying to buy this record that had been released in Germany by a band called the Beatles. And he walked up to record store manager Brian Epstein and asked for this record. And Epstein said, "Well, I'll have to look into this." And that's how it all started. That's how it all started, right? Actually, what that was a record. I looked in a little further. That was actually a record that they recorded with Tony Sheridan. They weren't actually the Fab Four yet. They weren't the Beatles yet. They were they'd gone in and to do a track with Tony Sheridan. Friday will be the 50th anniversary of the death of Duane Allman, who died on a Macon, Georgian street when he lost control of his motorcycle. He was trying to swerve to avoid a tractor trailer and was thrown for the motorcycle. The motorcycle bounced in the air, landed on top of Allman, and skidded another 90 feet with Allman pinned underneath. Duane was 3 weeks shy of his 25th birthday when that happened. Yeah, somebody's dog is not happy about that.
That was mine.
Okay. Okay, birthdays. Monday would have been the 80th birthday of Helen Reddy, I Am Woman, Angie Baby. She died last September 2020 at age 78. Her big song, Angie Baby, which was #1, and not the song that she was most well known for, but she got a #1 with it. Actually turned out that the writer of the song, I don't have the name of the writer, but that song was originally offered to Cher, who turned down the song. And Helen Reddy then made a hit with it. Monday will be the 77th birthday of John Anderson, longtime but former lead singer of Yes. Monday will be the 72nd birthday of American musician and record producer Gary Talent, is a bass player with the E Street Band. And Talent is, other than Springfield, Talent is the only original member of the E Street Band who's still around. I mean, who's still in the E Street Band, right? Monday will be the 63rd birthday of Simon Le Bon, lead singer of Duran Duran. Thursday would have been the 85th birthday of Charlie Daniels. The Devil Went Down to Georgia. Remember him?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he died in July of 2020 at age 83 of a stroke. Friday will be the 77th birthday of musician, singer, and songwriter Denny Lane, formerly of the Moody Blues and Wings.
Wings.
Yep. Friday will be the 75th birthday of Peter Green, one of the founders of Fleetwood Mac. He died at age 73 in July of 2020, just a couple days after Charlie Daniels did, actually. And to wrap it up, on Saturday will be the 82nd birthday of Grace Slick, Jefferson Airplane. Grace will be 82 years old. Wow.
Yeah, I've heard that she's, I guess the last maybe close to 30 years, she's devoted a lot of her time just working and doing artwork, doing paintings and sculptures and things like that.
Yeah.
Um,
She did a solo album back in the mid 70s. I forget the name of it. I just remember this. That was pretty good back in the mid 70s that I listened to. Okay, there it is. Anniversaries and birthdays. Bob, you have anything else for us? You have a couple more items to toss at us?
Yeah, I do. I've got two more items that I really want to get in, so please indulge me, viewers. The first one, this to me is just incredulous, maybe because I'm not a Grateful Dead fan, but Sotheby's recently held an auction of Grateful Dead memorabilia, and a Grateful Dead t-shirt from 1967 sold at that auction for $17,640, making it the most expensive vintage rock and roll t-shirt ever to be sold at an auction. Now, adding to that, another
wait a minute. Was this just like a t-shirt that they would like have in a box and sell in a
I don't know. That the article I came
what?
across doesn't provide that. I saw a picture of it, and yeah, it's just a really simple t-shirt, from back then. Then they had another t-shirt dated from 1977 that sold at the same auction for $15,120, making it the second most expensive rock t-shirt ever sold. Now, so, we all picture a Deadhead as being somebody in a tie-dye t-shirt in a VW microbus traveling across the country, camping out at their shows. But apparently the Deadheads are sitting on a ton of cash these days.
I guess.
It gets better, okay? In addition to these t-shirts, Jerry Garcia's amplifier went for $378,000 at this auction. So I was just blown away by this. And it seems that previous record held for rock t-shirts went for a Led Zeppelin garment from the band's 1979 Gnebworth concert that went for $10,000 through eBay. But I'm not a Grateful Dead fan, so I just can't imagine spending that kind of money for their stuff.
I don't know. Is this a supply and demand thing because of this whole supply chain thing happening that we can't get any t-shirts in?
I don't know. Maybe it's like land. They ain't making no more of it because there really ain't a Grateful Dead anymore. So.
Wow.
Okay, my last and final item. Sorry there, folks. Dan, this is for you because this is out of your backyard. To celebrate what would have been Chuck Berry's 95th birthday, a new live album is being released on December 17th called Live from Blueberry Hill. And this concert and album was recorded in a special place, the St. Louis club called Blueberry Hill, where Chuck Berry performed more than 200 shows. And it's also where he did his final gig in 2014 before passing away. So this album will feature performances that Barry did between July 2005 and January 2006. It has 10 tracks on it, and he recorded it with what Barry called his Blueberry Hill Band. And that band featured his daughter Ingrid on harmonica, a son Charles, Barry Jr. on guitar, and bassist Jimmy Marsala, pianist Robert Lohr, and drummer Keith Robinson. The owner of Blueberry Hill, who's also a longtime friend of Barry's, named Joe Edwards, even built a stage for Barry at the club that he called the Duck Room, after, of course, Barry's signature on-stage little move. And like I said earlier, it's 10 tracks, and it covers all of Barry's classic hits: Roll Over Beethoven, Rock and Roll Music, Sweet 16, Johnny Be Good, and some others. So anyway, that's coming out December of this year. And I know, Dan, that's there in your backyard. And I think you were telling us earlier that you actually saw Chuck there a couple times.
Yes, Bob. Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. Not surprised, but I didn't know about the album's new release. And so now I saw him twice, and I don't think any of the recordings that are on this new live LP. However, saw him in 2003 with my cousin, and then a year later with Leslie. And both times, yeah, the Duck Room had been refurbished. It was actually downstairs of Blueberry Hill. Blueberry Hill is a large combination restaurant, record store, everything like that. So you go downstairs in the basement, and it's Chuck Berry, and of course the band played for about a good 15 minutes before Chuck came on stage, to get warm, because he was late. Big surprise there. But yeah, he came out in his classic, very smartly dressed, his captain's hat, and he played Roll Over Beethoven and Maybelline. Songs that are just iconic to the, foundation of rock and roll of America. And he also did do Ding-a-Ling, although I don't.
that was one of his biggest hits.
Yeah, I know, and it came out in the early 70s, and it spurned a revival of 50s musicians and 50s music. There was a lot of stuff going on with that, and so it was great. I mean, it was Chuck Berry, and yes, he did finish out both times I was there. He finished out with the duck walk, and he must have had the longest extension cord possible. I know, because he must. Not only did he keep playing, he went off stage. You did see him, and then he came back on stage. And he gave a fair amount of time to his son and daughter, and. Okay, so he would be in his, I guess, early 70s at that time, because I think he passed when he turned 90 or 91, I believe. So the shows they lasted maybe not even an hour. It didn't do his entire, catalog, of course, but the songs that Chuck Berry for. I was glad the first time I saw him that he did Roll Over Beethoven, which the Beatles covered in their second LP, which George, of all people, sang lead on that. Right. Just a little trivia, but I'm glad I got to
where is that place exactly?
It's on Delmar Avenue, just outside, but it's in University City, not far from Washington University. And there was that big track, there was always Blueberry Hill. There was the theater that used to show Rocky Horror Picture Show for many years, the Varsity Theater. Then there's another one. It's still draws, but of course,
Did he have a place when I was a kid, like in high school and maybe the year or two after high school? I remember going with you and some other people to a place. And I'm thinking it was out towards Wentzville, and it was referred to as Chuck Berry's farm.
Yeah,
We
it
never
was
saw
different.
Chuck Berry there, but we would go out there and see, some local bands playing and things like
Yeah,
that.
he would have local bands play there, and it was out in Wentzville.
Okay.
Before it
That
got
was,
built
that
up.
wasn't this place that we're.
No. This is
Okay.
urban setting. Right in there. Not 10 minutes from Washington University, but yeah, he had Berry Farm, and actually Berry Farm on a not so good light of Chuck is that's where he installed some cameras in the women's restroom to catch them in different positions, I guess. But
yeah,
anyway,
I remember going out there 2 or 3 or 4 times. I recall.
we never saw Chuck come out. They said,
No,
we may go out.
Chuck. No, we never saw Chuck there, but it was
No.
some local bands, I guess, and
Yeah, there was local bands, and I guess the attraction was, well, maybe Chuck will come down and play, but he never did. So with that, but yeah, I'm glad I got to see Chuck.
I also remember one of the attractions of that place is that you could go there and you could fire up as much doobie as you wanted to fire up in that place, and everybody knew that the local police, it was hands off. It was Chuck Berry's place. Leave it be.
Yeah, they didn't care. It was Chuck's place. It's you're in Chuck's world now.
Yeah. So it was a safe place to burn your weed.
Yes.
Yeah.
And one other note about the shows that in the Duck Room, Bob, he did play his Crimson Red Gibson 355 guitar. So one that he, I think, used throughout most of his career, different versions of it maybe. So that was
Dan, I have always been impressed and amazed at your near encyclopedic knowledge about St. Louis and its environs. So I have to ask, the Blueberry Hill Club, any connection to Fats Domino and his song about finding his thrill on Blueberry Hill?
If you ask Joe Edwards, who's the owner, yes. He was a big Fats Domino fan. And, another one of the foundational people of rock and roll, Fats Domino, who, although he's originally from New Orleans,
right?
But yeah, it was named after that. And I think what gave it some impetus too was the one TV show, Happy Days. The main character Richie Cunningham was always saying, "I got my thrill on Blueberry Hill." So yeah, it's a homage to his fanship to Fats. And
I knew you would not disappoint me if I asked the St. Louis question.
In fact, speaking of Blueberry Hill, and along that sidewalk strip, Joe Edwards has taken it upon himself to highlight people from St. Louis who have made it big. Everybody from Vincent Price, Jimmy Connors, and Chuck Berry. There is I think it's a 12-foot statue of Chuck Berry with guitar.
Really?
Not far from there. So yeah. Chuck Berry is revered in St. Louis, and Joe Edwards did everything he could to keep it alive, and here he comes again with that stuff.
How about are there any memorials or whatever to like Ike and Tina Turner?
They're on the St. Louis Walk of Fame, which is along Delmar Avenue. I don't know that there's any statues yet, but they're certainly on the Walk of Fame. Along with other sports figures like Lou Brock, Bob Gibson, other notables. I know a lot of people are surprised to find out that Vincent Price, was from St. Louis, but his father was a pretty well-to-do businessman, and they manufactured, I forgot what type of machine it was, but yeah, and then of course,
St. Louis has had a lot of famous sons over the year. John Hamm from Mad Men, John Goodman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then literary wise, of course, the man who wrote A Streetcar Named Desire.
Tennessee Williams.
Yeah, Tennessee Williams went to Washington University. Of course, he wrote about he didn't really he said he had a bad time in St. Louis growing up, but that was a lifestyle thing, I guess. And yeah, there's the Walk of Fame is there. I recommend it, and I think music wise, I think Johnny Johnson's on there too. Which ties back into Chuck Berry, because that was Chuck Berry's keyboard player for many years on records, but he didn't get paid for it. And I think Bob knows, or he's got wind of this, that they had to take him in court. He wanted percentages of residuals, and
sure.
And if you talk to, I remember reading Keith Richards once said, he goes, those records wouldn't have been as good without Johnny Johnson on keyboards. Myself, I still think the guitar predominates, but you can hear the keyboards on them.
So that ties into a final question I had for you, Dan. Was to tie into. I've always heard that Chuck Berry was a notorious cheapskate, and that when he would go on tour, he never took a band with him. He would just go into town and pick up local musicians and bring them on stage and say, "Okay, you're backing me up," because he could pay them off cheap rather than supporting an actual backing band. So
that's true.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah, especially Chuck served a little bit of jail time back in the early '60s for, I forgot what it was, what the conviction was, but yeah. So when he came out, he could still sell his name Chuck Berry on tour, but there's no band. It's just I got my guitar, I got my amp, and all the local musicians. Hey,
I'm happy. All the songs.
They knew all the songs, and they're happy to this. I played on stage with Chuck Berry. That was John Lennon's one of his highlights when he got to play with Chuck Berry on stage at the I guess the Toronto, was it the Toronto concert? I'm trying to remember.
Toronto.
Yeah, I think it was, because that started out as a tribute to to 50s rock and roll people.
Yeah, it was that Toronto concert 1972, was it?
Yeah, and Lennon was tickled.
But it was old. It was
was that 69? Was that 69?
Yeah,
that was
69.
Yeah.
Because that supposedly led to the breakup of the Beatles, because it gave Lennon the confidence to go off on his own.
Right.
And here's real trivia. If you go on to, and I'm not sure if it's the mic, for 1 week, John Lennon, I'm getting off the course here of Chuck Berry, but John Lennon and Yoko co-hosted with Mike Douglas show back in the.
I watched that one at.
I remember that.
I watched that one at. My dad. I asked my dad. It was like 3:30 in the afternoon, right?
Yeah, and they
for a whole week. Yeah.
And they would interview different guests from different types of the entertainment business, and then I don't think Chuck Berry was on, but there was one.
Yes, he was. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Was. Yes.
I wasn't sure about the show, but anyway, here they are. Here's Lennon and Chuck Berry, and they're introduced by Mike Douglas, and Yoko's on stage of all things, and she's got a conga in front of her, and she made the mistake of letting out a shriek, and you see Chuck Berry, and he looks around all bugged. He goes, "What was that?" After that, they tried to play. It was during one of the choruses of. I think it was Johnny B. Yeah, it was Johnny. They did Johnny B. Goody, and she did one of her patented Yoko shrieks, and Chuck just looked at her like he was throwing daggers at her. Yeah.
Okay, well that's the Geezerology Gazette for another week. Come on back and join us again next Sunday. We'll have some more news items for you. Join us on Wednesday when Bob and Dee are going to have a discussion about celebrities who have just just done goofs and recorded their own music, their own albums. This is basically coming off of, we had a discussion after William Shatner got shot off into space the other day, and of course that reminded us of the Rocket Man. So we decided to try something different. We're just going to have a little talk about celebrities who have gotten out of their lane and recorded their own music over the years, and then on Friday, I believe Bob is going to join us for a review of the new Carlos Santana album, which has just been released in the last few days. So that's coming up this week. Check it all out, everybody. And thanks for joining us. So long.
All right.